Denver, Colorado, a city surrounded by mountains, clean air, nightlife, and tourists who come here to escape. But in the shadows of this city, something darker has been happening. Over the years, bodies have been turning up in fields, riverbanks, alleys, motel dumpsters, all with chilling similarities. And yet, no one has been convicted. Police still can't agree on how many victims belong to one single hand. Some investigators believe this isn't coincidence. They believe one serial predator has been stalking Denver for years, dumping bodies like they were meant to be found, then disappearing into the night. Tonight, we step into that mystery, because somewhere in Denver, a killer may still be free. It started quietly, with one body, then another. At first, detectives treated each case as its own isolated tragedy. A drug overdose here, a homeless individual there, a sex worker found near a drainage ditch. Denver sees violent crime, but these stood out. There were details that didn't make sense. Some victims were found partially clothed. Some showed signs of being moved after death. Some had ligature marks or bruising that didn't match the official cause of death. But the pattern was subtle, clever, designed to look random. There was no single crime scene, just dump sites. Police began noticing that many of these victims vanished days before they were found, and the killer, if there was a single killer, never left an obvious trail. No clear fingerprints, no consistent fiber matches. Nothing neat. Some detectives whispered internally, someone is hunting vulnerable people and using Denver as his disposal ground. But publicly, police hesitated to connect anything. Was it one murderer, multiple offenders, or just the grim coincidence of a city with hidden violence? No one could say for sure. And that confusion would haunt every investigation that followed. The pattern didn't explode into view overnight. It crept in slowly, like a shadow that kept stretching longer across the city. Investigators started noticing something repeating, something that didn't belong to random violence. Most of these victims were last seen alive in the same zones. Sketchy pockets near Colfax Avenue along Federal Boulevard, or near the homeless encampments where people drift in and out, unnoticed. People who could go missing, and nobody would file the paperwork immediately. And then, there was the staging. These bodies weren't buried. They weren't hidden deep. They were left in places where they could be found, but not instantly. Abandoned lots, overgrown trails behind warehouses, dump spots that only predators or street survivalists would know. The killer seemed to have a specific MO, if you looked close enough. Victim type, similar. Body placement, similar. Condition, eerily similar. The killer wasn't trying to make headlines, he was trying to make these people disappear, but still leave his mark. And that's what made veteran detectives uneasy, because this wasn't messy, impulsive rage. This was controlled, intentional, practiced. This looked like someone who's done it before, and someone who could do it again whenever he wanted. When the list of possible victims began to form, there was a heartbreaking common thread. These weren't high-profile citizens. They weren't people the city would rally around instantly. Most were women. Many struggling with addiction, some surviving through sex work, a few living without reliable housing, drifting between shelters, motels, and street corners. They were people society, and the system, often looks past. And the killer understood that. Almost every suspected victim fit a similar vulnerability profile. Someone who could go missing for days before anyone even asked where they were. Someone the killer could approach without drawing attention. Someone whose disappearance wouldn't spark an immediate statewide alert. A predator like this doesn't choose targets at random. He picks the people with the smallest safety net, the quietest footprints, the ones who can vanish without causing a storm. Many of these women were in transitional danger zones, trying to survive, trying to get through one more night. And that's where he hunted, and that's the chilling part. The killer wasn't just choosing victims, he was choosing categories of victims, a demographic he could prey on again and again, without pattern alerts, without fast media outrage. It's almost as if he understood. which lives would barely be defended, and which deaths would barely be investigated. That, more than anything, is what made detectives start using the word that nobody dared say too quickly: serial. The locations where the bodies appeared were as telling as the victims themselves. These weren't random city streets or crowded neighborhoods. The killer chose hidden pockets, spots that were easy to access but hard for the public to notice. Overgrown fields on the outskirts, abandoned industrial lots behind warehouses, the quiet banks of the South Platte River. These were his dumping grounds. Sometimes it was an alleyway that seemed insignificant during the day, but at night became a grave. Sometimes a dark corner behind a motel where transient populations came and went without anyone really noticing. Each spot spoke to planning, to someone who knew Denver's underbelly intimately. Detectives began to map the locations and saw a chilling pattern. The sites were spread out enough to avoid easy connections, yet consistent enough to suggest a single hand at work. The killer wasn't careless. He was deliberate. Every placement showed an understanding of the city, where people would look and where they wouldn't, where bodies could be left and still remain unseen for days, sometimes weeks. This geography wasn't just a backdrop. It was part of his signature, a silent message in Denver's shadows that the city wasn't as safe as it seemed. As the cases piled up, a question haunted investigators. Was this the work of one killer, or more than one? Local Denver detectives leaned toward caution. They saw subtle differences between some of the dump sites, variations in how the bodies were placed, the timing, the victim profiles. Some believed these discrepancies suggested the possibility of multiple perpetrators, perhaps a copycat, perhaps a network operating under the same cruel methods. But FBI profilers saw a different story. They analyzed the behavior, the precision, the chilling consistency in choosing vulnerable victims and leaving bodies in semi-visible locations. To them, this was the hallmark of a single mind, a calculated predator with control and ritual. This disagreement created tension in the investigation. Should resources focus on one suspect, or were they chasing shadows of different offenders? For the public, the uncertainty added another layer of fear. If multiple killers were operating in Denver at the same time, anyone could be at risk. But if it was just one, the thought that a single predator had stalked the city, choosing his moments with care, made every alley, every hidden lot, every quiet corner feel dangerous. And no matter which theory you believed, the killer's identity remained a question mark, as elusive as the shadows he hid in. Despite mounting evidence, police have never fully confirmed the scope of the Denver body dump cases. Part of it is institutional caution. Officials are careful not to make public statements that could compromise ongoing investigations. Every word could tip off a predator who might still be out there. But some critics say it goes deeper than caution, that bureaucracy and internal politics have slowed transparency. Media pressure plays a role too. Sensational headlines can create panic, and authorities are wary of feeding public fear. A city already shaken by these crimes can react unpredictably. In some ways, keeping details under wraps is a form of damage control, but it also fuels frustration for detectives, journalists, and families seeking answers. And then there's politics. Denver is a growing city, and no one wants the label of a city where a serial killer operates with impunity. There are layers of legal strategy, internal debate, and public relations at play, all colliding with the simple fact: someone is killing people, and the truth remains partially hidden. For investigators on the ground, this silence is a double-edged sword. Protecting the investigation might save lives, but it also keeps the killer's shadow lingering over Denver, unanswered questions piling higher with every undisclosed body. Even decades later, whispers persist among law enforcement. Could there be more victims? Still undiscovered, still unconnected? New cases occasionally emerge, deaths that echo the same chilling patterns, bodies left in hidden spots, victims with similar vulnerabilities, no clear evidence pointing to a culprit. Some detectives see these as coincidences, others see the unmistakable signature of the same predator. Inside the department, Theories circulate quietly. Experienced officers speak in hushed tones about cases that feel familiar, files that never made the public records, victims whose disappearances were barely noticed, reports that were closed too quickly. The fear is real. If one killer struck with precision before, he could strike again. And even if it's been years, some believe he hasn't stopped. The city's dark corners, once thought safe, may still be hiding secrets. Denver remembers the bodies, the unanswered questions, and the shadows that stretch long over its streets. And until the truth is uncovered, the possibility remains. This case is far from over. Denver's streets are alive, bustling, vibrant. But beneath the surface, the shadow of an unknown predator lingers. Decades have passed, yet the questions remain. How many victims were there really? Who was responsible? And is the killer still watching? Still moving among the unsuspecting? For families, it's a wound that never heals. For investigators, it's a puzzle that refuses to be solved. And for the city, it's a reminder that some dangers hide in plain sight, just beyond our attention. As we end this chapter of Denver's dark history, we invite you to reflect. The unknown killer may still be out there, unseen, untouchable, waiting. If you have any leads, theories, or insights, share them. Every piece matters. And remember to subscribe, because this is only the beginning. The first story in our ongoing series of unsolved mysteries across the United States. Denver's shadows are long, and the search for answers is far from over.